Hello.
Hello. Oh.
Yeah. Everyone come around. Our work is on the floor over here, so if you'd like to see it, it's best if you just huddle in. So we're two students from Unit 12. We're called Bricoleurs on Soft Ground. And this weekend we read Silent Spring by Rachel Carson, which is a book that was released in 1962. And it primarily focuses on POPs, which are persistent organic pollutants, specifically DDT. But we came together and we discussed chapter 5, which is Realms of the Soil, because obviously our unit's about soft ground. And the chapter discussed humans' inputs into soil systems and other things like nitrogen fixing and detrivores like fungi. So when we came to brainstorm it, we tried to figure out what stood out to us, what was most important in the text, which is the specific quote that Ashita will get into later. But the text was mostly related to humans' interactions with POPs and bioaccumulation, which created a positive feedback loop in the soil systems and created an unstable equilibrium. And our poster highlights soil horizons, which are the O, A, E, B, C, with specifically C as the parent material, but O being the thing that was affected the most as it's the topsoil.
So continuing to explore soft grounds and the practice of bricolage, we strive to using 100% recycled materials to make our piece. This is a value that we take throughout our unit models as well. In a collaborative effort, we found these materials in our studio and the workshop. Through this, we learned to deconstruct, reuse, and reconnect with the earth and the ground as we look for the soil that we used. The glass represents the fragility of our ecosystem and atmosphere, having its own existing cracks, encasing what's inside, being the earth. Held loosely together by a frame, we intend to represent that it's not too late to implement collaborative efforts needed by society to step up together and do our parts to fight the climate crisis.
So if you'd like, just come down and see our poster. It's supposed to hang vertically, but for now, you can see it on the ground.
I'm really impressed that you have read Silent Spring, which I think is one of the most seminal pieces of literature for ecology. And it's great that it's having an effect on your thinking. And you want to tell us a little more about this thing that you're making?
Right, so the idea was... Wait, is this working? Yes. Yeah, okay, great, sorry. The idea behind this poster was to focus on this quote, without soil there's no plants, no animals, and so forth. And what we did was we sort of used rope to look like fungi trickling down the soil. And it's just to display that these things are still persisting throughout time. Obviously the book came out in 1960, but it's still relevant to today, and you can still see it being marked in the soil. So we wanted to demonstrate the soil horizons and how our use of POPs have still been trickling down into the soil systems.
Well, I don't know if there's anyone in the universe that knows more about spores, molds, and fungus than Rachel.
Probably thousands of people, but I really like this. I think the visibility of soil, but not just the horizons. If you think of the gradients, the spatial systems, the communities, the relationship between the old and young Earth, if I can say. So there's something called a redox gradient, which means that at the top of a soil, where the particles and the organisms can get hold of oxygen, there's one particular kind of metabolism, and that is like the new Earth metabolism after microbes invented oxygen, let's say. But deeper down, where there's no oxygen, you have communities that have different kinds of metabolisms that are more kind of hydrogen sulfur based. They have a kind of different reduction oxidation potential, right? So essentially they do different stuff. Now the thing is, there's a tension between in that structure between what's happening at the surface and what's happening lower down, and actually there is an electrical gradient across it. And so what I see is not just the structural system that you've identified with the horizons and, let's say, an archaeology of making these spaces, but there is an active process, a metabolic process within the soil, which William Bryant Logan notes that. So if you haven't read William Bryant Logan's Dirt, the Ecstatic Skin of the Earth, do. It's really easy to read because it's like a series of about 14, I call them love letters to Earth, but they're really descriptions of soil in a historical and a contemporary process. He gets really obsessed with the work of a guy called Hans Jenny, who's a compost maker, and he kind of he turns it into this story, which is about the old world before soils, and then the new world, which is destroying these kinds of gifts that the community of life has made available. So, I mean, I love the choice of materials for this. I would encourage you not just to make it about the aesthetics and the structure, but also think about the tensions, the exchanges, the currencies, the living nature of the earth, because soils have a lifespan of about 25,000 years, so they're going to die. And then all these kinds of harmful practices, you know, like the use of DDT and over-farming, and the throwing of how we've equated explosives with fertilizer, I think is, you know, really bizarre. But all of these things are making our soils die faster. But the question is, where are our new soils going to come from? Because our current soils in Europe are coming from an ice age about 25,000 years ago. So where are the future soils? You know, we've got a few tens of thousands of years to kind of come up with that. But, you know, I think it's really raising questions about, you know, soil is not permanent. It is not like the geology of the earth, a permanent feature. And even that is being reinvented. So I think the kind of, if you can help us really get to that, I like the use of glass because of that ephemeral nature. But yeah, I kind of want to read more and more into it. And I'm just trying to encourage you to think of all the different stories. And I think that Bryant Logan's work is a really good place to start.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Just two references to situate the work of Silent Spring. I would strongly recommend you to go to the book All We Want Is the Earth in chapter 2. I think it is a very interesting framework and very critical and radical as well. And the other reference is the idea of soil palimpsest, because I like palimpsest, there are like layers over layers, like soils work more as constellations of past environmental disturbances. So yeah, I would encourage you to dig deeper into the soil, which is a fascinating topic. Thank you.
Yeah, you could say the history of civilization of humans, from the very first humans, is written in the soils, and there are millions of narratives in different places around that. But yeah, very nicely situated work. Thank you.
Thank you.